Some afternoons just change everything. In the grand sweep of history, you find these moments, these tiny windows of just a few hours, where the entire fate of an empire gets decided on one single field. And October 19th, 202 BC was absolutely one of those days. At the heart of it all, two of the greatest military minds the world has ever seen.
On one side, you've got Hannibal of Carthage, the legend, the military genius who had terrorized Italy for 16 straight years, bringing Rome itself to its knees. And on the other, Publius Cornelius Scipio, the young Roman general who had, get this, never lost a single battle. This wasn't just another fight. This was the final, winner-take-all championship match of a 17-year world war.
So, let's dig in. How did these two titans end up squaring off on a dusty plain in North Africa with the future of the entire Mediterranean hanging in the balance?
Well, their epic duel was the grand finale of what we call the Second Punic War, and this was a massive, brutal conflict that stretched all the way from Spain to Italy. It was a fight for total, absolute control. Only one superpower was going to walk away from this one.
Now, the journey to this final showdown was long, it was bloody, and it was filled with some absolutely stunning victories, incredible strategic gambles, and one of the most brilliant Roman counterpunches in history.
So for 16 years, think about that, 16 years, Hannibal had been Rome's boogeyman, running circles around them on their own home turf, undefeated. But while all of Rome's attention was on Hannibal in Italy, this young guy, Scipio, was over in Spain methodically taking apart Carthage's empire piece by piece. By 206 BC, he'd kicked him out of Spain for good, and then came his masterstroke.
Scipio did the one thing Carthage thought was impossible. He took the war right to their front door. He lands an army in Africa in 204 BC, basically putting the city of Carthage itself under threat. This totally forced their hand. They had no other choice but to call their greatest general, Hannibal, all the way back from Italy to defend the homeland. The trap was officially set.
And so, there we are. On a plain near Zama, two of the greatest armies of the ancient world are gathering for one last, decisive battle. I mean, the stakes just could not have been higher.
All right, let's look at the tail of the tape here. You can see the big differences right away. Hannibal has the clear advantage in infantry, maybe up to 50,000 men. But look closer at that one line, the cavalry. That's the key. Scipio had over 6,000 horsemen to Hannibal's 4,000, and Scipio's guys were just way better. That single difference, well, it would prove to be absolutely critical.
So you might be asking, why was Rome's cavalry so good all of a sudden? The answer is this guy, Massinissa. He was a Numidian prince and an absolute master of these fast hit-and-run cavalry tactics. He actually used to be an ally of Carthage, but Scipio, with some brilliant diplomacy, managed to flip him to the Roman side, and he brought his elite, battle-hardened horsemen with him. A total game changer.
But Hannibal? Oh, Hannibal had an ace up his sleeve, a terrifying wild card that was designed to do one thing: smash the disciplined Roman legions into pure chaos. 80 war elephants. Just imagine it, a living, trumpeting battering ram.
Okay, so Scipio is facing a bigger army and a herd of war elephants. He knew he couldn't just win with brute force. He had to win with his brain. And what he came up with? Well, it would literally change military history forever.
So here's the setup. Hannibal puts his infantry in 3 separate lines. Up front, his mercenaries. In the middle, his African recruits. And then way in the back, held in reserve, are his toughest troops, the battle-hardened veterans from his Italian campaign. And right in front of all of them, the elephants. Now usually a Roman army would line up in this checkerboard pattern you see here. It's strong, it's flexible, and it lets fresh troops move up to the front. It was also exactly what Hannibal was expecting his elephants to charge into and just break. But Scipio, he wasn't playing by the book today. This is where we see Scipio's pure genius at work. First, instead of the checkerboard, he lines up his infantry units in straight columns. This creates these wide-open lanes that run straight through his entire army. Then, as the elephants start to charge, his men blast their horns, making this horrible, terrifying noise. It panics the animals and, you guessed it, funnels them right down those harmless channels. Finally, once the elephants are stuck in those lanes, his light infantry can just pop out and attack them from their vulnerable sides. Brilliant.
It worked even better than he could have hoped. Some of the panicked elephants actually fled sideways right into Hannibal's own cavalry, throwing them into complete chaos.
Seeing the confusion, Scipio's superior Roman and Numidian cavalry charged. They shattered the Carthaginian horsemen and chased them clear off the battlefield. Phase 1, a complete success for Rome.
With the elephants and cavalry now out of the picture, it all came down to a nasty, brutal, grinding infantry fight. The first Roman line slammed into Hannibal's mercenaries and, after a bloody struggle, broke them. Then they crashed into Hannibal's second line. The fighting was, as one historian put it, just fanatical. The Romans managed to push that second line back too, but their own guys were getting exhausted and disorganized, and waiting for them behind it all was Hannibal's third line, his finest, his freshest, his most experienced veterans who had never, ever known defeat in Italy. The final, decisive clash was about to kick off.
Just as these two exhausted groups of infantry are locked in this desperate struggle, a cloud of dust appears behind the Carthaginian army. It's Scipio's cavalry. They'd finished their pursuit, and they had returned to the battlefield at the absolute perfect, most decisive moment imaginable.
Hannibal's veterans were now completely trapped. They had Scipio's infantry to their front and the returning Roman cavalry smashing into their rear. This is the classic hammer and anvil tactic. The infantry is the anvil that holds them in place, and the cavalry is the hammer that just crushes them. Caught between these two forces, the Carthaginian line completely collapsed. Hannibal's great army was destroyed.
And just like that, the battle was over. Hannibal had been defeated for the first and only time in a major battle, and the consequences of this one single afternoon would echo for centuries.
I mean, look at these results. They are just staggering. Hannibal's army was annihilated, 20,000 killed and another 20,000 captured. The Romans, on the other hand, lost just 1,500 men. It was one of the most lopsided and decisive victories in all of military history.
The peace treaty Rome forced on Carthage was utterly devastating. Seriously, every single term was designed to permanently cripple them. They lost their entire empire. Their treasury was emptied by a war debt that would take 50 years to repay. Their navy was cut down to just a handful of ships, and they were even forbidden from having war elephants, but most importantly, they lost the right to be a sovereign nation, unable to wage war without getting permission from their new Roman masters.
And that's really why this all matters so much. With Carthage totally neutralized, Rome was the undisputed master of the Mediterranean. There were no rivals left. The victory at Zama wasn't just the end of a war. It was the beginning of the Roman Empire, and it set the stage for the next 500 years of Western history.
It really leaves you with a fascinating question to chew on, doesn't it? What if Scipio hadn't figured out that elephant problem? Could Hannibal have crushed the legions that day and finally marched on Rome? How unbelievably different would our world look today if the victor of that single pivotal afternoon had been Carthage?